Never underestimate the power of conversation and community. It's amazing how therapeutic it can be just to vent and talk when you're talking to someone who understands you or can relate to you. I pray to God for more people in my life that can help me or guide me and be real, or for Him to bring genuine friendships in my life and vice versa, right? But surprisingly enough, I'm not really meeting any new people. I'm just being reintroduced to people I've already met and seeing them in a new light, right? And I can admit, I've been a bit closed off, to say the least. And I can understand why, right? But having certain conversations, that it's almost like it nudges me back into focus, right? And at times, those conversations also inspire me to create content like this. If I'm being honest, though, it's also helping me come back into the present moment. I notice myself being so checked out, right? Which, it's the title of the series. It's part of the reason why I created it. I've just been living in my own world. But when I talk to others, it pulls me back into my body. And I'm slowly starting to slow down long enough to observe, hear, pay attention. Not just to what they say, but the emotion behind it and how that can shift the tone and the pace, right? It's part of the reason why I'm adding this to the series of being on autopilot. People are a part of that. I notice how if you speak to someone, if you slow down, they slow down. If you look someone in their eyes, you can tell their interests, their nerves, their genuineness, or the lack thereof. It brings you back into the present. Something, it also helps me slow down, right? Because as I'm observing them, I also now become more present in my body and notice me. I notice the same thing, right? So after speaking to someone, I notice about myself how observant I can be, and how sometimes I get in this space where I'm just waiting to respond, and I'm more so living in my head more so than my body, right? And I've noticed how in moments when I'm just speaking to someone and I actually slow down, I remember I don't have to rush, right? And just how much value there is in not doing so. I do that sometimes when I'm on autopilot. Rush. I woke up this morning clinging to my phone. I literally woke up doom scrolling on Instagram threads, reading tarot and horoscopes about, being too far gone, or just doom scrolling, right? And luckily I was able to catch myself before I got too stuck in it and I pulled myself away. But I've been thinking more about that. I know for a really long time that I've needed to slow down. I've known for a really long time that I've needed to stop doing a lot of things, like first and foremost, pulling away from my phone, right? Be more intentional about my diet and my mental health regimens, like getting back into meditating, my yoga, doing slower walks, sitting in silence, reading instead of watching TV all day. Really pulling myself out of this dark space that I've been in and just be still long enough to gain clarity. But I just haven't done those things. And I'd like to keep asking myself, like, why? Or just keep saying things like, what's wrong with me? But to be honest, I think it's more about just sitting with it and holding space for it. Being, just holding space for the fact that that's what I have been doing. That's how I've been existing up until this point. And instead of shaming myself, I can admit to myself that feeling that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. And I don't even think that's the right way to approach my emotions. You know, I'm starting to realize I think emotions just need to be felt. Perhaps that's why I feel these headaches from all this overthinking. Sometimes I forget that it's okay to just allow myself to stop rushing to find answers, or rushing to get things right, or get things in the proper position, or just rushing. Just sometimes I forget to just slow down and instead let life, my emotions, and my mind just flow and allow it to naturally reach a point of stillness. I think a lot of resistance comes in when you're trying to stop yourself from thinking, or stop yourself from feeling, or stop yourself from, doing those things. But if you instead, and I noticed that when I first started getting into meditation, the first thing that they teach you about meditating is that it's not about stopping your thoughts. It's about allowing your thoughts to flow while you observe and you let it, and you sit with it in your body. It's not about resistance. It's about allowing things to be felt and then released. That's how emotions work. It's unavoidable. You can't logic your way out of what you're feeling. And I think that's part of the reason why I have been on autopilot. I've spent a lot of mental time and mental space trying to figure out, essentially ruminating. I've been ruminating on my thoughts, processing it over and over and over and over and over again, especially the cringy ones, right? My God, getting stuck in that. And I actually felt that. I felt a subtle shift in my thought process of stillness, going from being in that overthinking state to stillness. And it came in a moment where I found myself doom scrolling on social media again. And it was like I finally reached a point where I was just scrolling, and I was shifting from one app to another. I went from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok it was like I was searching for something. I kept scrolling and not finding that dopamine hit that I was looking for. So I went from one app, kept scrolling, couldn't find it. Then I went to another app, kept scrolling, couldn't find it. And it was like I finally reached a point where I was like, what am I even looking for? Confirmation? Am I looking to escape? Am I looking for the right words to reassure me? What am I looking for? I spent hours doom scrolling on apps looking for some type of dopamine hit, and it just, I was like, what am I looking for? What is it that I am truly trying to find? Am I trying to hear something specific? And it was like, in that moment, it kind of hit me. It was like an epiphany moment for me, where I realized that this doom scrolling, all of these things that I'm doing and clinging to, this is me finally observing from a subjective level what my old coping mechanisms were. I escape into social media looking for a dopamine hit. I escape into tarot. I escape into horoscopes. I escape into my mind, trying to reach this solace that I feel like I don't have in my reality. And it was in that moment when I realized, like, these old coping mechanisms actually don't work for me anymore. Not like how it used to. And I'm telling you, I was searching on social media, literally like trying to find the right dopamine hit to help me to feel better and feel at ease so that I can go to bed and go to sleep. And I was like, wow, this is really not working. And now I have to shift, right? Now that I acknowledge that, it's like I also then had to acknowledge that I have to now shift from just thinking about what I need to do, to now realizing that I have to embody it. And I've known for a really long time now that what I really need isn't more noise. It isn't more validation. It isn't more consumption. What I really crave at the core of it is silence. I crave peace. And I've been trying to search for that peace in other people, in my mind, in my past, in my future. And I think on a soul level, I know I no longer have the capacity to receive and keep going on with these old coping mechanisms or escaping into my mind in the way that I have. I no longer have the capacity for it. And what I really need is to receive, is to release, actually. I no longer have the capacity to receive, and what I really need is to release, to empty out old memories, habits, painful stories, limitations, false beliefs, and the overconsumption of other people's words, opinions, or prophecies over me, and old narratives of how my life should go. It's like a silent, subtle shift in perspective on how I view myself, and actually getting a better understanding of what stepping into my purpose actually looks like, owning my voice. And it's just time to walk away now. I call this episode the Epiphany, right? Because first and foremost, I want to drop this nugget of wisdom on you guys. I looked up the definition of epiphany, and obviously this has to be just one form of a definition for it, but one definition for epiphany is the manifestation of Christ. So to receive that level of understanding is to receive the wisdom of God, to get a better understanding of who you are, where you're going. This is divinely guided, and I don't turn a blind eye to that, right? And I say that because it's like I'm also realizing it's just time to walk away now. I've reached a point where I've cried all the tears I could cry. I've grieved. I've been angry. I've been discontent. I've been so upset with exes and people and friends and how things didn't go and how I wanted it to go, and disappointed, and I've been aloof. I've tried to give up. I've tried to convince myself to settle. I've fallen and gotten back up over and over and over again. And I've reached a point now where I'm just ready to put it down. I may not know where I'm going anymore. I may not know how to necessarily get on the other side of this, but none of that matters. I've reached a point in my journey now where I just realized that the burden of trying to figure it all out has become too heavy of a burden to carry anymore. And it's helped me to realize, you really do have to choose peace. It's a choice. And it's easier said than done, because the process that a person goes through when they're trying to make a decision, to decide definitively on something, the process for everyone is different. And you have to honor your decision-making skills, right? Your ability to decide something, it's different, especially something like choosing to walk away, or choosing to think differently, choosing to now do things different, choosing to slow down, choosing to clean up your act. Deciding, coming to a conclusion of that, there's a lot that goes into it before you actually come to that conclusion. And a lot of it looks like unlearning and sometimes reliving through moments and experiences over and over and over again before you hit your level of what rock bottom looks like, right? It takes time. But I've reached a point in my journey now where I realize I can't go on like this anymore. It's past the point of exhaustion now. I've now reached a point of solace. I've reached a point of understanding who I am, to where now I can't turn a blind eye to that. Because once you understand who you are, you now have a better eye to now see what no longer resonates with that. So I've reached a moment of clarity to understand what needs to be let go of and what needs to now occur in order for me to actually step into the peace that I choose for myself. And if you're following along in this content and you resonate with it, I assume you're either at or coming up on that point. So I extend to you the peace and the compassion that I've now extended to myself. It's not easy, but it is necessary. And sometimes it takes getting out of your own way to see that. And sometimes it takes a conversation, someone outside of you. Sometimes you got to get bounced around. That's why the saying is you can't fully heal alone. You can't heal in isolation. Sometimes you got to expose yourself or let people expose you to a different perspective. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the people that God has aligned me with, because it is a blessing. But it's also now comes with the responsibility to be honest with yourself. And that's the greatest epiphany that you can have. So if you're following me on this journey, make sure you're subscribed to all the socials, YouTube, Spotify, all the things. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Talk to you next time.